it would go more viral if it was not perfect to the point where someone could watch the video and think about how they could make it themselves. It's the thing that brands obsess about the most, and it is in some ways the thing that they need to let go of the most. It's like folks who work in brand management are all design folks. Like that's, at school and design.
Navigating social media can be, well, complicated. Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast from Cupco.
Social media really sucks.
Where we unpack the latest trends and help remove the suck from social media.
Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast by Cupco. You're tuning in for a dose of marketing and get what's happening in the social media industry. We talk with the brightest minds in the marketing industry to bring the latest insights directly to you. So today we have an exciting guest on board, Lukas Kaiser. Lukas is a highly respected figure in the media industry, known for his expertise in content creation and management, and his background in comedy, directing, and producing. So currently, Lukas is a Senior Vice President of Content at Westbrook Media. His work involves developing vibrant and significant content for big talents such as Will and Jada Smith. So before Westbrook Media, Lukas was the head of content at Westbrook Inc., a company in California where he helped increase its growth and success. He's also spent time at Viacom as vice president and creative director, responsible for creating catchy content for brands like Comedy Central and Spike TV. Welcome, Lukas.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. And then, of course, I have our beloved CEO, Chris Coppinus, but, I always forget that part. Sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
He's just here.
I'm just the wallpaper, man. I'm just here to listen to Lucas. So, that's how it is.
I always say our guests have insights and then Chris has opinions.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how we roll.
Insights are opinions, by the way, right? Insight, because you got data, and then an insight is basically just an opinion on the data. So, Chris, you got insights too.
That's a good way of framing it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
It's less like I'm burning him all the time. One day he's gonna get tired of it. Okay, so Lukas, first question is, can you just please tell us a little about Westbrook and what is that all about and your role there?
Yeah, so Westbrook Inc. is the name of the company that I work for. My division, Westbrook Media, I run the sort of creative and development department. So Westbrook broadly, in some function or version, it was started about 6 years ago, but broadly we were incorporated about 4 years ago. And it was you mentioned a little bit before. It was started by Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, their manager Miguel Melendez, and Kosaku Yada, who was the CEO of their family office and had lots of experience in venture capital and sort of hedge fund management, mostly in Asia and some in America as well. So it was trying to blend a lot of different things. Ko had come from sort of the tech world, was actually at Harvard with Mark Zuckerberg and a bunch of folks, in that sort of a very esteemed class. And so had great connective tissue in sort of that early Silicon Valley POV. Then you have Miguel, who comes from a music background, worked closely with people like Jennifer Hudson and Robin Thicke and Queen Latifah. And then you had Will and Jada, who come from the traditional film and TV background. And the idea was trying to blend culture and entertainment together in a way that was less reliant, but still very friendly with, but less reliant on going out to a studio and pitching and trying to figure out, is there a way that we could create content, create cultural moments, and all that kind of fun stuff, but do it on our own terms, test and try, and then if something is successful and can find an audience, then spin it up and make it into bigger entertainment brands. And obviously, I'm talking around it, but the conclusion was, if you want to do that, you should do it on social media. And my previous experience, as you mentioned, was at Viacom. I helped bring brands to major TV and film properties. I worked on everything from Mission Impossible films to, in this sort of marketing function. to Comedy Central, South Park, and Tosh Point oh, and The Daily Show, to, like you said, Spike TV, which was, at the time we had just got the script for Yellowstone right when I left, and so like lots of Ink Master reality shows, Bar Rescue, to MTV, the VMAs, etc. Right, so part of a big function of what I was doing was creating content at the time that I joined, and then until about 20. So I joined Viacom in 2009, and then by 2015, this was no longer true. We were the main ad sales department for Snapchat, and we're also basically a lot of our content was funneling and functionally running Snapchat's Discover platform.
Yeah.
And all those sort of MTV content arms were early Discover partners. Then Snapchat took our head of ad sales, Jeff Lucas, and he became the first head of ad sales for Snapchat at the time. So I had a lot of experience with figuring out ways that we could work backwards and forwards in short form content that goes and scales into TV content and vice versa. And then knowing that ultimately brands are the backbone, a lot of that, especially in social media. So that was the strategy behind me joining Westbrook. And then I joined. And then quickly, I learned from Will and Jada. They're like, throw that playbook out. Let's just focus on the content. They were like, we got a runway. We had a little bit of funding at the beginning of the company. And they said, stop trying to monetize right away. Let's just make stuff cool for a year. And then we'll figure out in 1 year's time. And literally started in September of 2017. And by September 25th of 2018, which was Will's 50th birthday, famously, I guess, or at the time famously, Will marked his 1 year of being on social media, his 50th birthday, by jumping out of a helicopter into the Grand Canyon live on YouTube, which was the first check we got from a brand, which was YouTube, for our social media efforts. And from there, that became a bit of the model, which was test and try on social, work with talent, work with brands, work with social creators, try to find out formats that we liked. And by the way, not everything's going to work, but things that we like, and then try to figure out, is there a business in this? Is there a business of more content? Is there a business of, we launched Bel Air Athletics, which was basically inspired by the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. It was a sort of a streetwear line that was built off of Will sort of rocking these shirts and all this fun stuff. And then during the pandemic, we actually ran DJ D Nice's sort of merch line, and like there was a crazy we sold like $1 million worth of sweatshirts off of his Instagram, which I think was probably the height of the e-com experience we had before we had to do a lot of different interesting things on the Bel Air Athletics line, partly because we also then launched Bel Air, the TV show, which was our scripted TV department with Peacock Universal, which started as Will discovered this kid, Morgan Cooper, who had made a fan trailer, and then we spun that into a TV show. And yeah, we've continued to do that across the board. We started with Will going to Australia and having a vacation and going on an adventure, spun that into Welcome to Earth on Nat Geo. We continue to do that. The goal eventually could be, is there a filmmaker that could spin into being directing Will's next film, right? That would be the ultimate goal. And then eventually, and it really is not there yet, though people keep saying it, eventually, would we distribute on social, right? That's the hope is ultimately we could control our own destiny on a YouTube or an owned and operated platform. You can monetize whatever. And it's close, but the economics don't hit it quite yet, but I'd say in a decade from now, maybe in 5 years from now, are you going to be seeing big budget scripted things that are independently released with a mixture of theatrical run and a talent who leads the piece, a Will, a Ryan Reynolds, or somebody that we've worked with as well, or like even like someone or like smaller but who's a social creator, launching that project on social first, and they're not thinking about it as it's an afterthought or it's a less than, but that's the place that they're going because that's where the audience is. So that's the goal. Yeah. That's the hope of what we're doing at Westbrook. And we're going through a transformative time right now in Hollywood, which is certainly very, very difficult. But I think what's interesting is that a lot of the things that we set out to try to prove have been either accelerated or shifted in some ways that have made sort of our mission a lot more clarified in the last 18, 24 months. So yeah, that's Westbrook
absolutely.
broadly.
That's amazing. I mean, you guys are basically playing 4D chess because you guys are like, I think it's really interesting that you're merging sort of media, creative talent, brands, also merchandise,
Yes.
content, social media. You're merging all of these and e-com all together in sort of a one look. And I think you're absolutely right when you say, like, could the creators own the platform? Could the creators be the studio, not necessarily going through a distributor, not going through a Netflix, not going through a Peacock or whoever it is? Like, that's a really interesting thing. And you're right, like with the Hollywood strike that's going on, with the whole like changes in technology, the power is shifting a bit, and you guys are kind of getting accelerated into this really interesting business model. So I'm blown away. I think that's an amazing journey that you guys are on, and I think you guys are playing your cards right and seeing what is this actually going to look like in 5 to 10 years, and you're well ahead of the curve. So I just got to say kudos to you guys. I think you're spot on with where this is headed. So it's very interesting.
I'm just curious to how do you guys stay current when, the culture and social media is just evolving so drastically and in a fast pace? How do you keep on evolving and stay current?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on, when we were launching Will on YouTube, I have some great friends who are either still at YouTube or who were at YouTube at the time and are no longer there. And there was best practices around work with these creators. They're buzzy, and this is what it is. And we started to go down that pathway, and I got into an argument with Miguel, who is a great friend of mine, Will's manager and mentor, or my mentor, I guess, not really Will's mentor. I think they're the same age, but friend. They're friends, right? And so Miguel had a great point, which was, I don't want Will working. So we saw what other celebrities had done on social, which was announce yourself and come out and work with the biggest person on the platform who's on trend, and then that'll grow your audience. That was the statistical absolute right move for him to try to do. And we did one video like that early on, and I could tell Will wasn't excited, and I was confused. And Miguel was like, "We're not doing that again. We're going to work with people who they have a following. They're small. They're not like, just up like full up and comers, but we're going to always do a lean in where Will's famous. It's someone that they like. It's someone that they want to have a shot with. It's someone he likes, and that they have a little bit of social following, and they're going to make content together, and we'll just see what happens." So basically, we had pulled what Miguel was saying. Ultimately, was he was shifting from influencer strategy to creator strategy, which we became, at least in the Hollywood side, we became well known for, and a lot of the sort of entertainment marketing campaigns we did with Will and then with a bunch of other celebrities, which now is kind of the norm, was we kind of invented stuff like the creator carpet and having creators as opposed to like they would always just send influencers, and now it's all people who shoot, edit, and also have a platform, which is like, flattery. What is it? Imitation is the best form of flattery. Like I want people to take that trend and run with it, because to your earlier question is how do we stay abreast with the trends? What powered that insight wasn't I want to be on trend. It was just an insight about humanity and about how Will and those people ultimately needed to work together. Mm-hmm. So whenever we want to refresh, two things. One is I zag when others zig. I just do. Like if something is trending, I have a very quick moment of like not doing that anymore. And then people will be like, I want to do, but it's working, and it's like, we're not doing that anymore, because if something works and you do, and then the moment that you get the third iteration of the thing that works, and you go, it's just not, it's like not right, it's not fresh anymore, I immediately want to innovate. That's like. Yeah. I have a really high bar. Will has a high bar. Jada has a high bar. Most of the talent we work with, most artists have a high bar. They don't care ultimately what is working. They want to know what is interesting and exciting artistically, and that ultimately is what sets trends. So it's less about, unfortunately, we're less data-led in that capacity, although we work with strategists when we look at what's up and coming and trending and all that. But I would say we go 3 layers below what you might think we'd be looking at. We're not looking at what's about to blow. We're not looking at what's currently trending. We're looking at what's bubbling up that needs a push, like a Will or a Jada or a Ryan Reynolds or a Meg Thee Stallion to work with, who's like making good stuff but can't break through. And there's a lot of folks we work with, and I don't want to take full credit, but we like. Will was like the second person after Justin Bieber to give Lil Nas X a shout out. Like we basically were the second celebrity to post Old Town Road after Bieber posted a screenshot of him listening to the song. We made a whole music video with Will from Wild Wild West. Like we've been part of several climbs where it's like, wait, how did Will know about that, or how did Ryan Reynolds know about this person, or how did this person know about? Like we've been part of that in a lot of ways. And it's not because we're like trying to stay ahead of the curve. You see Drake doing a great job of this too. We're just leaning towards what we like more so than what's popular, And then knowing that ultimately we have a big enough platform that if it works and people like it, we're going to make it blow up, and then that'll become the trend,
Yeah, it's a good. If you've got a good barometer for things that you like and things that you want to be a part of, then you don't have to follow the crowd because you're already like doing things that you're interested in, and it'll come off more authentic, and it'll actually probably work better with your brand and with what you're trying to do. So it's a nice way. We have a phrase at the agency that we both work at, which is stop following trends and start trending, because it's a different way of looking at how do you do content and how do you do media, instead of like, okay, that's like really popular now, let's just jump on that bandwagon. I love that you're like, no, we need to zag. We need to like go the opposite direction, because if everybody's over here buying this, then we should go look at what's not being bought. Like maybe something's bubbling, like you said, that we can be a part of, and then you own the conversation much more.
And look, it logically does not make sense. That's an interesting sort of mechanic, meaning like logically you should do the trending audio and do the trending thing because logically it's working for others, and the algorithm, and we hear about the algorithm. I've just seen too many times on both sides when you've done the trend and it doesn't work, and when you've done something that does not make sense and is not part of anything and it does. And then there's best practices like, if we're going to do something risky and we are able to have a UGC post where we'll repost some cute kid we know is about to blow, and we do things where we try to get audience on a platform, and then we try to, we're smart. We're not trying to like hide behind whatever, but I've just seen it too many times where it's like, wait, how is Will right again? Like, or how is this person right again? Like, I've seen it too often to know, like, there's just a level of storytelling and connection that humans crave that transcends the now and is universal. And celebrities in a lot of ways, and storytellers and filmmakers, that's what the writers are saying. And it's we're going to get algorithm. And it's like, maybe I have not yet seen, and I play a lot with things like ChatGPT, I have not seen transcendent art come out of it. Whereas like I've heard great filmmakers pitch things where you go like, yes, like that's it. Of course, you just go like, and it's just that it's the the mind palace of a person who understands how to turn information into something that masses like. It's like there are people who are geniuses at that, and I would say, Will Smith is someone who is absolutely like that is probably his greatest strength. And there's been a lot. Like I've been lucky to work with a bunch of folks like that, so that's exciting. And it's also like in some ways it's disappointing because you want to be able to find that playbook where you can crack the code with all the information and boil it down. But ultimately, like it's like ultimately your clients probably want to have a dashboard that proves what's going to work, and it's like it's you guys that really it's like you guys know what you're doing.
It's this thing up here. It's insights. It's intuition in some ways, because I heard a great quote. I don't remember who said it, but basically like it boils down to, you'll never create the future with a ChatGPT because ChatGPT is looking backwards. at everything. Like it's only data, it's only information that has come before. You can't create anything that's future with it because it's always going to be looking back. It's always going to be. And I
Yeah.
found that super interesting. I don't know if that's the end all be all of it. I think like I still think that AI is going to help us unlock a lot of things,
Yep.
but
Yep.
but it is only going to be backwards and analytics that way. And like you said, if you're going to transcend something, if you're going to make culture, if you're going to make the future, you have to have a little bit of intuition, and you have to have a little bit of something else involved there.
I want to double click on that too, and a couple thoughts here. So like, I'm going to take a long road, and then we'll longish road, and then we'll find our way back. I noticed early on we were doing a lot of content with VFX artists, like independent VFX artists, and there was a certain level of non-professional VFX artists that worked. Will could work with anybody. He could work so well. In fact, I saw a post last night on LinkedIn where someone was like, I don't want to deride their point. They're right, but they were saying, oh my God, why aren't people pointing out how great VFX is in non-sci-fi stuff? Like when we paint the clouds out, and it's like, well, because we can't tell,
No.
And ultimately, and also, by the way, you're doing such a good job. We noticed that if a VFX artist, that we wanted to tag, and it would go more viral if it was not perfect to the point where someone could watch the video and think about how they could make it themselves, right? And I think that humanity lives in the mistakes, and AI in some ways is giving you the correct best connection between 2 points. If you say, hey, I want to think of a parody where it's The Office but set in the 1800s, it'll give you a thing that is exactly what you're looking for in some capacity. But it's almost like you want that, like if an SNL sketch writer did that, they would do that, but they'd also filter it through their own human experiences, their own life. In fact, I used to have, early when ChatGPT came out, the best results I ever had were I would give it a backstory that was pretty wild. I would be like, you're from Minnesota, you're in your mid-40s, you are currently a TV executive, but you were a high school basketball coach. And I would do all this stuff, and then I would say, come up with a show based on, and it would actually give me these crazy things, because the whole thing is people can't help but filter information through all of their life experiences, and that's what people ultimately want, is like, I'm telling my own story through everything I do. I'm talking about my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my crazy fantasies, whatever it is. All that's coming through me, and then it's being filtered through my clients. And I'm not ashamed of that. I lean into that because that's actually what they want, because I know that those little imperfections, ultimately, if we don't sand down the edges, those imperfections are what make things that little bit click more interesting, that makes it more human, that makes it, I think, culture rather than just clutter.
Yeah, it's why we stick around for the blooper reel. It's why we love those SNL skits. To your point, SNL skits where Ryan Gosling can't help but crack up, right? We love that stuff because it reveals the truth that we're all Ryan Gosling. We're all sitting there going, "This is too funny. Like I can't hold it in anymore," right? So, but I think you're right. I mean, you do need to provide those things a lot of background, and I think it's a great tip there for anybody listening. Is like, if you want to get the most out of these AI tools, really feeding it a ton of data, a ton of background story, a ton of perspective, a ton of lens to look through to produce the content. Because if you don't have that lens, and then of course, like when you do get it, then you have to filter it again through your own lens. But that's like, you got to provide it with the lens. Otherwise it's just computer content, something that was made by a computer. You need to get to like a humanistic aspect of it, right? Yeah, it's just a checkbox. Like, yes, okay, I give you the shortest distance between point A and point B, and I love feeding AI with like, be counterintuitive, like try to provide irreverence, like try to think of this if you were not correct, or how to think about this if you were politically incorrect, or try to do these things. And sometimes that helps, but it still needs it still needs tweaking, right?
Yeah, I used to do a thing where I'd be like, I'm mad at your response, but I'm not going to tell you why. Can you guess why? And it would be like, is it because I didn't listen to you? And I'd be like, yes. So can you give me back in a way that'll please me? And then it'll do it. And I'm like, I would do crazy stuff like that, which, yeah,
That's
it's just
funny.
funny.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I'm mad at you, but try to guess why. Yeah.
Try to guess why.
Yeah, I'm going to pull a little sexist move here and be like, that's like me arguing with my wife. Like,
Jesus.
she's mad at me, but like, it's time for you to guess why. Sorry.
Time for you to,
Sorry,
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't even know why I'm mad at you. It's like, yeah, you're right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's a fun game we play. I love it. I honestly love it. It was like, okay, let's get on to the better questions.
Back on track, right? I just want to.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Because you said you wish there was a playbook of such that you can just roll out and say this is the perfect kind of formula, right? But I know since you don't have that, could you just give us some tips, maybe common mistakes to avoid?
Yeah.
That on how to provide value and create some great content for the brand.
For a brand, yeah. I would say there's some common best practices that I think y'all probably deploy as well. I mean, everyone obsesses over Mr. Beast as an example of what to do, and the truth is because he's doing the right thing, and we obsessed over Casey Neistat for a lot of content. It's like there's a couple things. It's like start on a human face, usually with close-up shot. Don't start on a brand logo. Cold open in the middle, and media res. So shareability and engagement is super important. One of the things I always tell people is like, if you're making digital content, you're on somebody's phone. They use this to communicate with their friends, and you're butting into their conversation. So think about how would you interrupt somebody's conversation with their friend in a way. It's almost like if you're like you meet a beautiful woman or you meet a handsome guy, and you just go, "I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just got to tell you something." It's like you the brand are almost like trying to pick somebody up at a bar, and it's like, so what would you do?
Yeah, you want to woo somebody. That's like a funny approach.
You're wooing them. You don't want to start on, like music and logo. It's like, okay, that would be like literally like the drunk guy walks in and interrupts everybody, and they're like, get out of here. You don't want to be that. You want to come in and be like,
smooth.
Like you want to come in and be like, hey, like, sorry. So starting mid conversation, start something really exciting that they would be interested about, and then is the piece of content for the people you're trying to entertain or engage with, what are they going to do with that content, number one? And then what action do you want them to take? Like, just basic stuff, right? Well, do you want them to buy something? If you want them to buy something, it's not bad to say, I want you to buy something. So then, like, people who do a great job of it on TikTok are like, UGC people being like, I know you don't like hearing about, blah, blah, blah. I know you're not thinking about switching to this new hair cream. Like, there was like a pomade ad I saw where this guy was like, this is really good and it's going to take you 6 seconds. And like, it was smart stuff. Like, people, I think the TikTok creators do a great job of it. But I think there's an opportunity to go deeper in that you can still tell a story and still entertain while also hitting some of those KPIs. But yeah, I think it's basics. It's basic stuff. And then it's simple stuff too. Like people like seeing, I do it on Zoom calls usually. Like I'll take Zoom calls the way that I like my content creators to create content, which is outside, walking, in the sunshine, with motion, and like, you want to seem like somebody's out in the world FaceTiming you, like you make this thing feel like you're a vibrant human being that's living and experiencing things, not like logo in a studio, products, and if you do all that stuff, like, those are, I guess, trends, but I don't know. I mean, those are pretty practical tips. And then I'm trying to think of like, tips. Yeah, it's just like simple stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that you said, like, I think that is really resonating with me is, you are, think of it like you're interrupting a conversation between two friends at the bar. And you got to come on with something that is, I mean, the algorithm's going to hopefully make it relevant, but you got to come in with something that is like, hey, I want to tell you about this cool thing because this really fits into your conversation, or this is really something you should stop and take a look at because it's like, it's really cool and interesting. And, it might be something that you're selling like, hey, but you're not selling it because you want to sell it. You're selling it because it's going to add value or it's really, really interesting. Right. And so you got to find those angles in and not necessarily like be interrupting just to interrupt. I always like to look at things through a lens of like, would I Slack this piece of content to one of my employees or one of my friends, or you know what I mean? Like that's always like when I look at stuff that we do internally at Cubco or for our clients or for anything rather, like I always look through the lens of, okay, would I actually send this to somebody? And if the answer is no, then, and even if I'm not the intended audience, like I always like try to put myself in the shoes of those audience and say, well, okay, where are they going to share this or are they not? And if they're not, then I think we have a dog
They don't do it.
to redo it. So that's how I look at it.
You mentioned at the beginning that I was, directed comedy. I was a stand-up comedian for a long time, on and off. I did it in college. I went to school from 2000 to 2004. I'm an old man. And so this was the pre-social media day. We would hand out flyers to try to get people to come to our shows, and that sounds scary to people, but like I was really good at getting people to come to things, and I would go to them. So this is the social media world, right? It's just like, I love those shoes. Thank you. Like, do you live? It's like those kind of things. You're literally like, you're talking to somebody like a human being. You're not like, come to comedy. Like we would be like, we'd give out 100 flyers and maybe 10 people would come. That's a higher hit ratio, by the way. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was doing I was barking, which is what they call it, barking for comedy shows. Like, I just know how to communicate, and I just bring a lot of those lessons, which is just like connect with someone in a way that is human, but also like charming, and inviting, and then cut to it right away. I'm not just here to talk about your shoes. I want to tell you about this comedy show that I'm doing. I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't think that I had some amazing folks on here. But we have folks from SNL, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty funny too, although I'm not very funny right now because you're not laughing. But I'm going to be there too. I'm hosting. And also the best part is it's free, and we do a raffle at the end where we give away $100. And you're a broke college student, right? Like me. So I bet you could use $100. So why don't you come to the show? I'm going to give you this ticket here, because it's $5 at the door. But if you take it now, and you're like, oh, great. Like, that's a social media post. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just,
it really applies, right? It's a funny way. Like, I think that, how much do you think like your background in comedy, I know you do a lot of comedy stuff, but you also do some other things like within music and drama and all sort of, how much do you think like your comedy background plays into your role now? And
social media, comedy is the most, it's like, I think it's one of the most important things. I think it's probably the most engaging, especially with brand, when you're dealing with messages, comedy is so important. So I'd say that's like the primary most important thing. And then you brought up music. I'm a composer. I did a lot of music for film and TV, and my taste in music is important. And I'm also an editor. Like, I was a professional editor. That was when I started at Spike TV, which when I became a VP, I started as an editor, and then I switched over to become a producer and all that. But I can edit content. Like, I know everything's about pacing. Everything's, I can shoot a little bit. I'm not like a videographer by trade, but I can shoot, and I shoot a lot of content. I always say I have a team. I work with great people, but the 3 most viewed Will Smith Instagram posts of all time, I shot and edited them myself. It could be, and it's like, because it's a shot on a cell phone, and I cut it on CapCut, and got it out right like that. If you're, by the way, and I'm an executive. Like, I run a company, but I know how to do it. Like, I'm a doer and a maker and all that. And at the very least, I understand how long things take, and I know how to give people feedback and all that. So that's part of it too. But comedy, so it's editing is super important. Music is super important, but comedy and understanding that from a writing perspective and from a generative ideation perspective is so important. Improv comedy too. My parents had me do improv comedy when I was very young, and then I've done improv my whole life. And so knowing how to just pitch an idea, and also, the whole A to C, you've heard that idea before of like how to generate ideas.
Yeah.
Improv ideation is all about like, so they have a game called the pattern game where you sit in a circle, try to come up with ideas for what you're going to do in your show. And someone will give a suggestion like, hat. And then you don't say hat, and then don't say head. You go hat. Then you go A, B is head, and then you go C would be mustache. Hat, mustache. Because the idea is that there's more interesting connections where it's like FBI, like the FBI disguise, hat and mustache, or whatever, FBI, so you get ideas by not going so vertically, but more laterally. And that's sort of the ideation. Yeah.
Okay.
I suggest anyone takes an improv class, by the way. It's embarrassing, number one, and it's super creative. So,
yeah.
That's definitely.
I love that. Maybe I should do that at our next company event. Hey,
I was just gonna say, don't give Chris any ideas. He's gonna book a company retreat with some kind of improv session for us. Well, you know what? I'm open. Let's do it.
Do it. I'm suggesting you do it. But yeah, comedy's very, very important.
It is a really good point.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Also,
and
it was an illustrator and a comic book artist a little bit, and like illustrator design is important to me, but. It's one of the things I was joking with a friend of mine yesterday. Like, it's the thing that brands obsess about the most, and it is in some ways the thing that they need to let go of the most. It's like, because most folks who work in brand management are all design folks. Like, that's, at school, and design, motion graphics. That's great, but that's that flat, overly designed print world. Man, I love print ads. When I look back I have old like magazines from the 50s, and I love that is a heyday of advertising. It ain't coming back. Like we don't live in that world anymore. So you're not going to just run your print ad on digital, guys. You can't do it.
Yeah, we had Kevin Lynch on the podcast last week. Who is he's the ex-creative director at Oatly. Do you know Oatly?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And he shocked us by saying at Oatly, they don't have a brand guide. They have no brand guideline. And I was like, really? You guys have no graphic visual identity guideline or spirit guide or anything? He's like, nope, we have none of that. And I was like, I think that's the way of the future. I think like,
yes,
it has to embody the spirit of the brand, not look like the brand. And I think that we're seeing that across social, especially like brands just jumping into different things and always evolving because content's evolving, media's evolving, technology's evolving really fast. So do you really want to be stuck with the same similar look for 5-10 years? Like it's not viable anymore. You have to be able to evolve quickly. And I think I love that idea. So, and I think you're just echoing that sentiment here.
Yeah.
I think playbooks and brand guides, they're kind of, the old way of thinking, right? It is meant for print. It was for that age, that era of media and marketing. That was, there's a playbook, there's a brand guide, and this is what we do to continue that course. And today is just different.
Yeah, I think partly, and I think what that was representative of is if you're a consumer product good or whatever, you're buying ingredients from a farm. You're making that you don't own. You're manufacturing. Maybe sometimes they're licensing the manufacturer. What do they own but their brand guidelines? Do you know what I mean? That, and I think that's the interesting thing is like, what does McDonald's doesn't own the stores. Those are franchisees. McDonald's doesn't own the factories that make the meat necessarily. Sometimes they own some of them, but like they own the Golden Arches. They own some of those things. So I get it. You gotta like have some semblance of what is the brand, what is the value you bring to it. But I think the new way is some IP, like Barbie or whatever is a great example. It's some IP through that, but that's represented through storytelling, not through visual identity. That to me is that's where your value is going to come in this next generation. Because we're video, we're not print anymore.
Yeah, I wish I could retweet that. Brand guidelines don't matter. Storytelling is what matters, right? Like that's
the new brand.
That's
guideline.
What you want to own, right?
What
absolutely.
Do you want to talk about? What stories do you want to tell? Who are you, and who's your customer, and how can we? That's the whole idea behind platforms as brands. I think that's a good idea. People make fun of it. Oh, you're not a McDonald's. You're not a burger chain. You're a platform, and it's like you're a burger chain, but you're also a platform. But I like the idea of, but. If you were to, if McDonald's was Will Smith, right, and McDonald's wanted to think about how I approached bringing on creators, right? It was so a young chef, who wants to reimagine the Big Mac, and do 10 videos for their TikTok or whatever that are going to be, they don't have the most following. So it's not an influencer campaign. It's just this person is creative and we're giving them the amplification of our platform for the month. And it's because we think this person's cool and they represent what we're trying to do. And then that person's story is part of our platform, right? That's exciting.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a great note to end on. I know we could sit here, man, and talk for hours. Honestly, I want to have you on the podcast again. Actually, me and U are going to be in LA, I think in November. So we'll
Cool.
have to sort of link up there. And I would love to have you on again, man, because you got so many great insights. And I know our audience is just going to love this. So
Cool.
I just want to say, thank you so, so much. It's been super insightful. U, if you want to say a few words, go for it. I know you can launch as much praise as you want on this guy. He's going to take it. So that's
Such interesting stories, and I love these kind of tangible examples you're giving. I mean, I know it's great. I love that. I think there's a lot of value to bring to our listeners, at least.
Yeah,
I think it's
awesome.
also, I think we're also a little bit, I think it's something my friends tells me sometimes, like when we talk about social content and stuff like that, we get a little bit in our head and we're like, yeah, that's best, everybody knows this, everybody should know this. But then it's not common knowledge always. You kind of just get in your little tomb a little bit and be like, yeah,
Sure.
everybody knows that. That's so common. I mean, I'm not providing anything new here, but I think for some people it's definitely, even the small stuff in your mind is actually maybe groundbreaking in theirs.
It's been groundbreaking for me.
That's cool. I love the generation that y'all represent in how people are approaching social media too. I mean, man, I think I'm inspired by what y'all put out. I'm inspired by some of your contemporaries, and I'll go down a rabbit hole looking at direct to consumer Twitter, where I'm looking at these people talking about I love it because I love people who are at the highest maximum moment of passion, right, around what they do, because that's where, even if it's something that I totally don't agree with, I'm going to learn so much from. So the thing I wanted to end on too is if you see me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, wherever it is, reach out. I love meeting people, and I love, even if there's no intent, people who are listeners or whatever, let's just chat. It doesn't have to be about whatever, but I love learning about creativity and what people think and big picture thinking. Let's talk about how do we take social media and disrupt industries and bring them back together again. So please reach out, folks, and I'd love to talk.
You love Tristan.
That's my bag. But where can people find you then to connect with you?
I think probably the most is my Instagram is really just I post cat photos and photos with my girlfriend. So I think LinkedIn is really where I'm most clicked in on. I post sometimes frequently, sometimes I'm just too much in work mode, but I'll post just insights and storytelling about sort of my journey. I also am on there chatting with folks and networking, and I'm a pretty active user. So I think find me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing. And then, we're out there, we're making content, and we're always looking to meet people. So let's do it.
Great. Thank you so much, Lucas. We'll put your links to your LinkedIn in the show notes, so everyone listening can go there and link up with Lucas. And we'll be following along, seeing the rest of your journey and what you're going to do with Will and Jada and Westbrook. And thank you again so much for joining. It's been super insightful, and we will definitely link up in the future and have you on again. So
appreciate y'all and really appreciate being invited on here. This was an honor. So thanks.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks.
Talk soon, everyone. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.